All right, hello and welcome to episode 78. My name is Dr. Karp, and this is Wednesday Night Live. And tonight we're going to be talking about how to slow and reverse skin aging. And give me a moment while I go over to YouTube, and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Give some people some time to come in. And I'll get started over on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Hey, David. Hey, Ivy, Jill, Helen, Shanti, Sharon, Shirley. Welcome, everyone. And give me one moment while I go over to the YouTube and get that started. And then we're going to also go live on Instagram as well on the Miracle Noodle Instagram page. So let's see if I can get that started. Give me a second. Whoops. I can figure that out here. IG Live. Let's see. Okay, YouTube is taking a little bit of time here. Okay. Going live on Instagram. And we're live on Instagram as well. And we'll let some more people come in. Hey, everybody on Instagram. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to reverse and slow skin aging. And just going live on YouTube. Hello, everyone coming on. Welcome to episode 78. Again, we're going to be talking about how to slow and reverse skin aging. My name is Dr. Karp. And I am a board-certified dermatologist as well as a lifestyle medicine physician. And I'm also president and founder of Miracle Noodle. So welcome, everyone. We are still waiting to go live on YouTube. We seem to be having a little trouble with that. We might not be able to do that. We'll get started in just a moment. If I can't get to you on that. Hey, Eliza. Tommy, welcome. And hello, David, Helen, Ivy, Jill, Shanti, Sharon, Shirley, and a whole bunch of people over on Instagram. Welcome. All right, so I'm gonna give this one more try over on YouTube. And if we can't get that, then we'll just get started, since we have a whole lot of things to cover tonight when we talk about how to reverse and slow skin aging. Hello, Kosher Everyday, welcome. Dr. Siegel, hello. And we'll give it one more second, and then we'll try to get started over on YouTube. Okay, looks like we're having a little trouble there. We'll try one more time, and if it doesn't work, we'll get started. Okay. So basically tonight, we're going to cover a whole host of topics related to skin aging. And we're going to talk about things that are related to aging from the outside, from the inside, as well as some what I call plant power, how plants can be utilized to reverse and slow skin aging. And I think you'll be amazed at how powerful plants can actually be when it comes to slowing and reversing skin aging. Okay, so it looks like we're not going to be able to go live on YouTube. I will upload that afterwards. So for everyone who is on the Zoom call, I'm going to share my screen, but for those on Instagram, you will be able to understand everything that I'm talking about, so no problems there. And give me one moment, and then we'll get started. Okay. Okay. Okay, all right, so welcome. Everyone should see my screen on Zoom. And if there is a little bit of a delay, I'll be able to get rid of that because the YouTube connection is not working tonight. Give me one moment while I sever that connection so we don't have a problem. And then we should have no problem with speech delays or anything of the sort. All right, so tonight, this is episode 78, amazingly. And what partially is amazing is that, as many of you know, I'm a board-certified dermatologist and also do lifestyle medicine. And it's taken 78 weeks for us to really start talking about skin, which is something that, of course, I trained for quite a long time in and still see patients with. And so tonight, we're going to be talking about skin aging. And we're going to be talking about what I call, and other people call, something called intrinsic aging. Then we'll talk about extrinsic aging. Intrinsic aging is what's happening naturally as you age, what's going on inside the body. And I want to give you a general idea of what's going on by going through the anatomy of the skin, because once you have an understanding of that, you'll actually be able to appreciate why plants specifically have so much power when it comes to reversing skin aging. And we're not talking about just topical application of plants, but also plants that you eat as well can have a profound effect on the speed at which your skin is aging. Then we'll talk a little bit about extrinsic aging. And this is what's happening from the outside, things like sun damage and environmental insults, as well as some other things that we'll go through a little bit more in detail so you have a better appreciation. We'll then go into what I call plant power, where we'll talk about a whole host of things that plants can do. In fact, when you get through listening to this, you'll wonder if plants can do pretty much everything to reverse the aging of your skin. So creating a program, a regimen that revolves around certain types of plants is going to be really critical to making sure that you slow and reverse skin aging. Then we'll talk a little bit about diet and lifestyle, specifically what type of diet, what type of supplements, as well as talk about some of the details as to why those things are important. And then probably we won't have time, but I'll make a few comments at the very end about common cosmetic treatments like Botox and fillers, just so you have some, not going into great detail about that, but just so that you have general idea of what they are and some of the things to look out for, because these cosmetic treatments are really, quite frankly, they're fabulous for a lot of things, but there's a proper amount and there's things that you should be aware of. So we have a lot to cover. We have 1 hour and 10 minutes is essentially already out. So let's just jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is what's going on in the skin when you are aging. And we call that intrinsic aging, which basically means what's happening on the inside. And there's a whole host of things that are happening to the skin as you age. Now, we all know some of the signs of skin aging. There's increased dryness of the skin, laxity of the skin, where the skin kind of like stretches, but doesn't sort of plump back up again. Wrinkles, of course, growths on the skin, irregular pigmentation, all these things that none of us want to have as we get older. And by having a general understanding of the anatomy of the skin, you'll really have an idea of really what is going on in detail when it comes to what's happening in your skin. So the first thing is the collagen in your skin. Collagen is basically like the scaffolding of your skin. And unfortunately, as you get older, not only does collagen break down, but some of the collagen through certain lifestyle choices actually can be converted into a weaker form of collagen. And therefore, what's happening there is the scaffolding that's holding up your skin starts to degrade. You get less collagen, collagen breaks, and therefore it's like a house without the scaffolding. It kind of crumples down. And that's what's happening as you get older. Now, fibroblasts, these are cells that create collagen, also decrease in density. So in addition to this scaffolding decreasing, the cells that make fibroblasts actually are also decreasing. And generally, everything that we're talking about here, all the components of the skin that are, all the anatomy of the skin essentially is decreasing in density. So elastin is another component of your skin. Now, elastin is what you would expect it to be, which is the elasticity, the stretchiness of your skin. If you pick up your skin and then you let go, that part of that is hydration, but another part is the elastin, the stretchiness of that skin allows it to sort of pop back into place. And as you get older, unfortunately, the elastin in your skin also decreases. And therefore, the stretchiness and the rebounding nature of your skin that provides the sort of suppleness of the skin also decreases. So we've spoken about collagen, which is a scaffolding. We've spoken about elastin. And now we can talk about keratin. Now, keratin basically is there to basically hold the cells together. And just like I said before, everything as you get older is slowly decreasing in its amount. So you get a decrease in this keratin, which makes your skin weaker. Additionally, keratin also forms that dead layer of skin that's on top of your skin. And that provides barrier function to your skin because, quite frankly, one of the things that your skin is so amazing at is providing protection against the outside world. And if the keratin is slowly decreasing, in addition to the cells not sort of holding themselves together as they used to, you're also going to get this situation where the protective barrier of your skin is really not functioning the way it's supposed to. So here we have collagen, which you know now is the scaffolding, elastin, which is the stretchiness decreasing, and now we have keratin that's also decreasing. Next is melanin. So melanin is basically they're made from what are called melanocytes. These are cells that produce pigment in the skin. And unfortunately, the same thing goes here. The melanocyte concentration, the number of these cells decreases with age as well. And what does that do? Well, you basically get less protection from the sun because melanin is there. It's, believe it or not, actually forms what looks like an umbrella over top of the DNA to protect your DNA against the ultraviolet light radiation, which by the end of tonight's talk, you'll have a better and clearer understanding of what that's actually doing. So as you're getting older, in addition to the collagen, and in addition to the elastin, in addition to the keratin, the melanocytes are also decreasing in density. And in addition to having less protection from the sun because you have less pigment or less ability to produce pigment, you're also going to have uneven skin pigmentation. So that's going to cause irregularity in your skin tone. And unfortunately, that is another sign of aging of the skin. So the melanocytes are doing their best at trying to compensate for their decrease in density, but unfortunately, without proper strategies that we're going to be talking about tonight in order to prevent this from, or at least slow this from happening, unfortunately, as you get older, you're going to have potentially less protection from the sun as well as uneven skin pigmentation. Now, 2 weeks ago, we spoke in detail about the hair, but the hair can also become depigmented as you get older. And some of the hair can actually convert itself into smaller, what are called vellus hairs, which basically essentially means that your hair is decreasing in density, turning from firm hair, into very, very fine hair. On top of all of this, we have hormones that are decreasing. And so a lot of these hormones are there, and they provide a certain suppleness to the skin, affecting almost all the aspects we spoke of between collagen, elastin, and as your hormones decrease with age, all these things can be affected all these things that just happen naturally can also be made worse by a sudden decrease in the hormones. So here I've just painted what sounds like a terrible picture of aging, but there are solutions. And we're going to go through some of those solutions so you have a better understanding of what's going on. So now you have a general idea of the anatomy of the skin and what's happening with regular aging. Additionally, I want to speak a little bit about what are called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Now, this is something that I've spoken to you probably about in almost, we're at episode 78 now, and it's probably come up in, I would actually guess, almost half of the episodes that we've spoken about. Now, advanced glycation end products are basically what happens when your blood sugar spikes, and when it spikes, sugar binds to protein. And all these aspects of your skin, from collagen to keratin to elastin, these are all actually forms of protein. And taking collagen as an example, when your blood sugar rises very fast, when you're eating sugars or you're eating processed carbohydrates or refined grains, unfortunately, what happens is that the sugar binds to the collagen and actually can convert it into a type of collagen that's weaker, which is going to weaken that scaffolding of the skin and therefore cause a situation where, unfortunately, what happens is the scaffolding can start to sag. And this can lead to this is basically the reason why high sugar, high blood sugar rapidly, more so rapidly causes aging of the skin and wrinkling. So it's very important for you to be conscious of the fact that anytime your blood sugar spikes is going to weaken your skin. Now, we've spoken about all the effects all over the body, from things that are happening in the eye to the binding in the tendons, making you stiffer. It's essentially one of the main drivers of aging. And so if you can control that blood sugar, if you control it and make sure your blood sugar is not spiking, then you can reduce these things. Additionally, there's just general inflammation as you get older. It's a natural consequence of aging. And unfortunately, this low level of inflammation, which we'll talk about more when we get into lifestyle, even things like missing a night of sleep, can actually cause low-grade inflammation. And this low grade of inflammation, as it continues, unfortunately, is going to lead to greater inflammation and therefore breakdown of collagen, believe it or not, through something called MMPs. And these are basically, essentially, they are causing breakdown through enzymes of the collagen. And again, the collagen is that scaffolding. So this low level inflammation, unfortunately, can cause increasing amounts of these MMPs, which break down collagen, as well as interfering with the development of new collagen. Because, of course, you're not just born with a certain set of collagen. Your body is capable of producing collagen. And actually, there's certain plants that we'll talk about in just a moment that can actually create more collagen. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get on. All right, so now we have a general idea of what's going on with aging in the skin. And as I said, I feel like I've painted almost a bleak picture, and we're not done yet with what causes skin aging. So let's move over to what's called extrinsic aging. And these are environmental factors that are aging your skin a little faster than you want them to. Now, the first and the most predominant one, of course, is photoaging. And this is basically light. Light is basically going to cause certain types of light are going to be causing damage to your skin. Now there's UVA, there's UVB, there's UVC, and there's also blue light. And all of these are capable of damaging your skin. Now the UVB, you can remember UVB as it basically is what causes your skin to have a red sunburn. You can remember that, B for burn. And UVB is basically only penetrating the outer layer of the skin based on its wavelength. What can happen is you can get these formation of what are called neutrophils, which are white blood cells. And these unfortunately can release what's called elastase, which basically breaks down the elastin. The elastin is that stretchiness and suppleness that you have in your skin. Additionally, it can lead to an increase in these MMPs, which break down the collagen. So when you have a sunburn, in addition to some DNA damage, which can lead to skin cancers and such, it's also releasing these neutrophils, which are inflammatory white blood cells that are there to sort of scavenge. And unfortunately, as a result of the scavenging that they're doing, they're releasing these chemicals that are breaking down the elastin and breaking down other parts of the skin underneath the skin. Then you have ultraviolet light A, and this penetrates a little bit deeper. And unfortunately, if it's penetrating deeper, it's also getting into those areas with collagen. And therefore, if you're getting a large amount of UVA, which is of course happening from the sun, unfortunately, you are going to be damaging the infrastructure of your skin, basically. Now, UVA doesn't cause that red burning, and that's why it's important for you to have a sunblock, and we'll get into the details about sunblock shortly, that are basically penetrating, that is going to prevent you from getting UVA and UVB, because you can have an enormous amount of UVA exposure by wearing, say, a sunblock that just protects against UVB and still get an enormous amount of photoaging. And in the first generations of sunblocks, or sunscreens, I should say, they produced sunscreens that really only screened against UVA and not UVB. And while they prevented sunburns, they allowed an enormous amount of ultraviolet light to penetrate the skin and actually cause premature wrinkling and increased risk for skin cancer as well, but without burning. So you can get a situation if you're wearing the wrong type of sunscreen, where you don't burn, but you still have an increased risk for skin cancer, as well as just photo aging and wrinkling. The next thing I'd like to discuss is blue light. Now, high intensity blue light is basically something that's found from the sun, but is also found in artificial light sources like computer screens, screens from your phone, LED lights in your home. And it's been estimated that somewhere around 7 to 10 hours of exposure to cell phone use and to computers and TVs and LED lights is around the same as having 2 hours of blue light from the sun. So it's not an insignificant amount. Now, we've known for years that this blue light is damaging to the retina. We know that, and that's been proven. But now there's a great deal of information to show that this blue light from computer screens, TV screens, cell phones, LED lights is also causing photo aging and damage to the skin. Now, it's not the same intensity of sunlight, but unfortunately, it's producing a low level of inflammation that over time can lead to a significant amount of damage to your skin, believe it or not. And unfortunately, with all the Zoom calls and the time that we spend on our cell phone and in front of screens, unfortunately, I truly believe that we are going to see an epidemic of people with premature aging of the skin, even if they're not actually going outside, because of all this blue light that's happening. And there are some plant compounds that actually have been studied to reverse this. And so this sort of epidemic probably does have a solution in plants that we might get into as we talk about it a little bit further. But basically, all of this sort of photo aging is producing large amounts of oxidation to the skin. And this oxidation of the skin is damaging a whole host of things. Of course, it's damaging cell membranes, but it's also creating a situation of inflammation that is going to lead to sort of destruction of just about everything that is in the skin. So we've spoken about photo aging. This is, again, another one of those things from the outside. Also, these MMPs we spoke about, and with light exposure, they go up. And when they go up, you get breakdown of the structure of the skin. Smoking is another really premature ager. And in addition to it leading to premature aging of the skin, it also reduces wound healing. And when we have skin cancers on the face and someone smokes, it's really unfortunate, but the wound healing is really poor. And we try to get people to stop smoking just to help. But unfortunately, as you know, giving up smoking is very difficult. It's also been associated with an increased risk for squamous cell carcinomas, as well as melanoma, and can also make things like hair loss worse, probably due to reduction in hair flow, in blood flow, as well as psoriasis and acne, and a whole host of other conditions are made worse, not caused necessarily, but made worse by smoking. So of course, we know smoking is responsible for a whole host of things, but when it comes to aging of the skin, it's dramatic. And I can't tell you how many times, when I'm examining patients, I can often tell if they smoke because of the just incredible amount of premature aging. All those things that we spoke about: increased skin laxity, a lot of wrinkling, especially around the mouth, uneven skin tone, excessive wrinkling. It's incredibly obvious, and unfortunately, it ages you, 10 to 15 years more than the people's age. So if I'm seeing someone who's a chronic smoker and they're in their 35s, say 35, their skin really looks somewhere around 45 to 55, and it's unfortunate. Of course, we know smoking has a whole host of problems. Pollution. And of course, pollution has also been associated with wrinkling. So what do you do about it? Well, you can go back to some of my other lectures where we talked about how to optimize the detoxification pathways in the liver. And this can be done through a host of supplements, as well as just cleaning up and optimizing your diet. We just have to always understand that an optimal diet is always going to put you in a situation where your body is capable of building up the resilience to respond to environmental assaults, whatever they are. Our bodies are incredibly capable of doing that. And, well, there's not a whole much more to say about that. All right, so now we've covered intrinsic aging, what's going on internally, naturally. And then we've also talked about extrinsic aging, which are those factors, environmental factors, as well as some dietary factors that are causing aging from the outside. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about the power of plants, and then we'll finish up with diet, lifestyle, and a brief talk about cosmetic treatments. Now, the reason I wanted to focus on plant power is just to give you an example of how actually important it is to incorporate some kind of topical plants into your anti-aging strategy by illustrating the incredible power that these plants actually have on the skin. And I'm breaking this down in a scientific fashion, one, because I find it interesting, but and two, for people who have more of a scientific look about things. But for those who don't, I still think now that you understand all those details about the skin, collagen and elastin and keratin, as well as some of the concepts of inflammation, you'll really start to see how incredibly powerful plants can be at reversing each and every one of these things. And we're actually going to add a few other things that actually we spoke about last week in the stress lecture. So if you were here last week, you'll have a little bit more appreciation for what we're going to be talking about. So amazingly, plants have the power to do a host of things, and they run the gamut. And we'll talk briefly about this. Of course, we're all aware that things like topical vitamin C and a whole host of antioxidants are capable of are found in plants, and therefore application of plants is really capable of adding antioxidants to prevent this oxidation. But there's also the concept of hormesis, which we'll talk about in just a moment, and we spoke about briefly last week, which is the concept that by stressing your body in a certain way, like for example, exercise is a form of what we call hormesis, which is where stress actually causes you to get stronger. It actually causes your genes to, in certain ways, to be upregulated in a positive way, almost like your body is responding to the stress by getting stronger. And plants are capable of simulating that sort of response in your skin and in your body. And in 3 weeks, we'll be talking just about hormesis and how to incorporate these beneficial stressors into your overall lifestyle to be able to turn into a much stronger person. In addition, so we have antioxidants, we have hormesis that plants can do. There are also plants that have natural UV protection. And it actually makes a lot of sense because you have to realize that plants are the ultimate survivors. They've been here for millions of years. And in addition to being here for millions of years, they've been unable to move. In other words, they can't hide from the sun. They can't run into a cave. They need to protect themselves. And what do? They are master chemists, and they're capable of creating all of these chemicals to protect themselves against the intense ultraviolet light that is that they're being subjected to, especially plants that are, at the top of mountains. These plants are capable of withstanding an enormous amount of stress, not only from creating chemicals that protect themselves against ultraviolet light, but they're also able to convert sun into heat through certain pigments. And so instead of the ultraviolet light basically damaging the plant, it actually converts it into heat and gets rid of it through that protection. And some of the sunscreens that we use on our bodies, not the sun blocks that reflect the light against the skin, but sunscreens are capable of doing that as well. In other words, instead of blocking the ultraviolet light, these sunscreens absorb the light and convert it into heat. That's the way they neutralize it. So therefore, some sunscreens, and we'll get into this in just a moment, but sunscreens can make you feel warm because they are converting the light, the ultraviolet light, into actually heat. So in addition to plants having antioxidant capacity and hormesis capacity. They also can protect against UV protection. They also have photoaging reversals. And they're also capable of protecting the skin matrix. Now, the skin matrix is sort of all those other things underneath the skin. And unfortunately, we spoke about this low-grade inflammation is going to lead to damage by what are called cytokines. These are cells, these are chemicals that are released by cells. They're like chemical messengers that unfortunately initiate even more inflammation. And plants are also capable of getting rid of those. We've spoken about type 1 we've spoken about collagen as well. And I spoke to you about how collagen, we're not born with a certain amount. Our bodies are capable of creating more as we age. And plants are also capable, certain plants, of stimulating collagen as well. And we've also learned about fibroblasts, which create the collagen. Plants are capable of actually stimulating those. And we've spoken also about melanocytes. And for people who have irregular pigmentation to their skin, there are plants as well that can reduce people who have excess pigmentation. Additionally, we've spoken about the elasticity and tightening of the skin, and there are plants that can also improve the elasticity, the stretchiness and suppleness, and also tighten the skin. So all of these things, these are all just about everything that I've just spoken about, covers just about every aspect of skin aging, and plants are capable of doing that. So let's talk about a few of them briefly, and then we'll get into lifestyle and diet and supplements, and then we'll end tonight's class. So antioxidants, there's so many things that can act as antioxidants. There's mulberry, there's turmeric, there's green tea, there's grape. Again, I'm just going to briefly go through these, just plain antioxidants, things like licorice, star anise, yerba mate, coffee beans, poplar buds, thyme, rosemary. All of these things, again, have been studied not just on a topical basis, but also, in terms of people incorporating these into their diet. Thyme, rosemary, oregano, basil, all of these things have incredible antioxidant capacity and should be included in your diet, but there are also topical preparations that have been incorporated into creams and such that can provide this antioxidative capacity. Now, we spoke about hormesis, remember that beneficial stress. Well, things like curcumin, which is found in turmeric, and a specific kind of ginseng called nodo ginseng has actually also been shown to, believe it or not, create a little bit of stress in the skin, but not a negative stress, a stress that allows the body to actually upregulate things that cause the skin to get stronger and to elicit certain types of anti-aging effects. One of the things about hormesis is things like infrared light early in the morning can actually cause a little bit of a hormetic stress, which actually prepares the skin for the sun of the day. So early morning sunlight, or what's called photobiomodulation, which is these red infrared lamps used, in small doses, can actually cause this hormetic response that allows the body to actually become stronger and elicit different anti-aging pathways. And again, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in a couple weeks. UV protection, amazingly, plants are capable of doing that. Things like green tea extracts and pomegranate extracts, cabbage, palm fern, coffee bean, milk thistle, all of these have the potential for enhancing photoprotection. Photoaging, soybean extracts, coffee bean extracts, amla, which is a natural vitamin C, but has other ingredients in it that can help with photoaging. And even this protection of this low-grade inflammation as well. It's a whole host, again, of just incredible amounts. I know this is very complex, but I know there are a few people on tonight's class who wanted some detail here, but essentially there's lots of things going on. And I've listed them here in terms of wild yam, preventing the decrease in collagen, something called the areca nut, which helps with the elastin, making sure it doesn't break down. And even hyaluronic acid production, which bulks up the skin. Things like astragalus root, which many of you may have heard of as it's an herb and an adaptogen, has actually been shown to increase hyaluronic acid production and can actually boost the skin. Collagen synthesis, remember, there's many things that can actually promote collagen synthesis. It's amazing that plants can actually do this. And when you combine these plants, you get benefits that are like 1 + 1 = 4. That's what the most amazing thing is. It's essentially, if you are combining synthetic skincare products, you don't really know what the effect is going to be. But almost always when you combine different plants, you generally get a synergistic effect, a 1 + 1 = 4 effect. So all these things that promote collagen synthesis, like amla and burdock, ginseng, cinnamon, gotu kola, all these things can help build up the scaffolding of the skin and allow us to promote more collagen. So another plant solution to aging of the skin. All right, so we're covering a great amount of detail here. So hopefully I'm not losing too many people with that detail. But I wanted to really show you what is possible. And when it comes to more collagen synthesis, especially type 1 collagen, there is Camellia japonica oil and general ginseng. Both of these can increase collagen production. And then the fibroblasts, which create the collagen, there are a whole host of plants there, but predominantly cinnamon extract and amla extract, both are capable of stimulating fibroblasts. And once they stimulate fibroblasts, the fibroblasts can produce more collagen. When it comes to hyperpigmentation, there's a whole host of things. Now, many of you have heard of, say, hydroquinone, and you probably heard of kojic acid. Well, there's a whole host of other plant-based derivatives like raspberry ketones, licorice extract, arbutin, which is used in quite a number of depigmentation products, extract of aloe and mulberry and ginseng and pineapples and primrose oil and persimmon and gingerol from ginger. All of these have the capacity of helping with depigmentation. And so when people are trying to even out skin tone irregularities, in addition to the common things, as I said, like hydroquinone and kojic acid and green tea extracts are found in quite a number of products, there's a whole host of other topical chemicals, plant-based, that you can use to help with this as well. And even when it comes to tightening of the skin, again, there's a whole host of things, and you're probably seeing that there are some things that are repeating here, which means that they're having multiple effects on the skin. So licorice, which we've spoken about before, turmeric, pomegranate, amla, cinnamon again, some aloe extracts. And believe it or not, this thing from Africa called the sausage tree has been used in a few indigenous cultures where the women actually make sort of a paste, and they use it to tighten up their breasts, believe it or not. So there's a whole host of things that can also be used to tighten the skin. Okay, so that covers sort of the wonders of plants, and just wanted to talk to you really about how there are just an enormous amount of topical as well as diet types of things that you can eat that are going to have an overall impact on the general aging of your skin. All right, so now let's finish tonight talking about diet and lifestyle, and why it's important for you to have a general indicator or a general idea of what's going on in your diet and your lifestyle that's going to affect the overall speed at which your skin is wrinkling and aging. The first we've already spoken about, and that is those AGEs, those advanced glycation end products, which basically, to review, are anytime your blood sugar spikes, you're going to be getting sugar binding to protein, which is basically going to cause weakening of the collagen of your skin, in addition to a whole host of things. So first and foremost is making sure that your blood sugar is not spiking. The best way to do that is to get rid of all sugar, all juice, juices, clear juices. Be careful with dried fruits, processed carbohydrates, of course, and refined grains. Even whole grains, when they are refined into a very fine flour, are capable of making your blood sugar go very, very high. So all of these things, in addition to a whole host of other effects, of course, we're narrowing in on the skin tonight, it's going to be beneficial for you to reduce these blood sugar spikes. Calorie restriction activates a whole host of anti-aging pathways in the body. Now, calorie restriction, it has been associated with extending life. Again, we're speaking about it in the skin, and it's kind of like a hormesis. It is a type of a hormetic effect. And remember, that word hormesis basically means a beneficial stressor to the body. Now, I'm a favor of what's called biological fasting, which is a reduced calorie diet for 5 days, done once a quarter, something I do and my family does. And you can go to miraclenoodle.com and type in body mastery method to learn more about that. We have a program on the website that allows you to incorporate that into your diet and into your lifestyle. And by doing this, you're creating this minor stress in your body by having 5 days of reduced calories, a short period of calorie restriction that basically causes your body to rebound and become stronger afterwards, not just metabolically speaking, but activating a whole host of anti-aging pathways. They're going to result in, among other things, metabolic health, but also things that are going to generally help your skin. Sunblock is going to be important. Now let's talk frankly about sunblock. There's been a whole host of controversies about sunblock, sunscreen in the past 6 months because there were some toxic chemicals, and so let's talk about that briefly. First and foremost, there's a difference between sunblock and sunscreens. Sunblocks are physical blockers. They block and they reflect light off the skin. And by this, I mean zinc oxide, titanium dioxide, and of course, iron oxide would do that as well. And these are the best sunblocks. They are non-toxic and they are effective at blocking both UVB. Remember, B is like burn, so it protects against burning, and UVA as well, which is penetrating deeper into your skin. So it's protecting against UVA and UVB. I am not a fan of sunscreens. Now, there are sunscreens that work very well, but unfortunately, these are synthetic chemicals, and I'm known as the plant guy and more naturally oriented physician. And so I'm much more in favor of using a zinc-based sunblock. Now, another thing I would just like to mention again with this controversy is this notion that somehow getting more light is probably beneficial for your skin. So let's discuss that briefly. Morning sunlight, sunrise, within the first hour of the sun can be very beneficial for your skin. So if you're capable of getting sunlight early in the morning, right as the sun comes up, that has a type of infrared light that also acts like a little bit of a hormetic effect and is capable of building a certain amount of resilience to light later in the day. Now, it's unreasonable to think that all light is dangerous. It's really the dose that makes the difference. We evolved in the sun, but many of us we're not genetically ready for a fair amount of sun. I'm fairly light-skinned. I live in South Florida, and if my ancestors didn't evolve in this sort of environment to create the more pigmentation to protect itself. So we do need to be conscious of that and make sure that we're not burning. A little bit of sun is not going to kill anyone, obviously, but if you're burning and you are, spending an enormous amount of time, you have to be conscious of that. Additionally, some people, as they've gotten younger, have really forfeited the ability on their face and on their arms, where they've gotten an enormous amount of sun damage, to think that they can, in a healthy way, expose themselves to sun in those particular areas. So generally speaking, it's a good idea, especially if you're going to be spending more than 5 or 10 minutes of time in the sun and you're light skinned and it's the middle of the day, that you wear a physical blocker like a zinc-based sunblock. And the zinc-based sunblocks nowadays you can get, of course, they're not white necessarily like they used to be, and therefore you can get these in formulations that you can rub in, and they're very easy to use. So hopefully that clarifies that. Of course, there are things that you can take by mouth that can help prevent that, and we'll talk that will help protect you against the sun. We'll talk about that as we get into supplements. Someone's mentioning that there's been some reports about vitamin D and whether or not you'll be able to burn. And there was a study released about a year ago that showed that if you've gotten an enormous amount of sun and you're about to have a really bad burn, that you can take a megadose of vitamin D, and that can actually halt the bad effects of a sunburn. And the dose, I'm not recommending this necessarily, but the dose was something on the order of 50 to 60,000 units. It was one report, and I'm still waiting to see some more, I guess you could say, a duplication of that particular study. But we will, in just a moment, talk a little bit about some supplements, natural supplements that can actually help prevent or build up a certain resilience of your skin to the sun. Now, sleep is going to be important for two reasons. The first is when you don't get a good night's sleep, unfortunately, what happens is you actually create a level of low-grade inflammation in your body, in addition to what's going on in the skin. The second thing is that your skin, just like the rest of your body, has a circadian rhythm. And if that circadian rhythm is not in rhythm, unfortunately, what's going to happen is your cells are stressed. They're not going to be able to have time to go into the rest and recharge cycle. And when they don't have that rest and recharge cycle, just like when you go to sleep and you don't feel revived the next day because you didn't sleep, the same thing is happening in your skin, which is going to lead to your skin looking old and tired because it hasn't rebuilt its resilience. It hasn't recharged itself and repaired itself. We mostly don't think of our skin having a cycle that it goes into where it needs to essentially sleep. But unfortunately, things like blue light, which we've spoken about earlier on, having your skin, your face up against your cell phone late at night and against the laptop and against the TV, watching the TV, and under LED lights. Of course, people are wearing blue blockers now, but that's not protecting us against the blue light hitting our skin. And so therefore, our skin is not going into its natural rest and recharge cycle because of the blue light, which again is leading to low-grade inflammation and all those things that we spoke about before. Stress, which we spoke about last week, we spent a fair amount of time about that. And there is definitely, when you have a lot of cortisol and adrenaline in your body, you actually get a loss of collagen and elastin. There's also obviously more oxidative stress that's happening when you're in a stressful state for a whole host of reasons. And basically, unfortunately, just the increased cortisol and the increased adrenaline chronically, unfortunately, causes that loss of collagen and elastin. So the infrastructure as well as the stretchiness and the resilience of the skin. We have a question coming in that basically says that someone has a friend with psoriasis. She's never been much of a sleeper. Should she try to sleep more at a regular time to help her psoriasis? She used to treat it with UV, but doesn't want to anymore. Any ideas for her? Definitely lack of sleep causes an enormous amount of stress that can certainly make psoriasis worse. Psoriasis is one of those conditions that gets worse with stress. However, ultraviolet light, so for sure she should be making sure she gets proper sleep, and she should spend time learning about what's called sleep hygiene. UV therapy in the dermatologist's office is very effective for psoriasis. So a combination of that plus stress reduction can be very good, but everyone's different, and it's hard to make specific recommendations. But for sure, there's no question that the amount of stress that you put your body under by not sleeping appropriately can definitely cause an enormous amount of stress and worsening of psoriasis. Okay, all right, so let's talk a little bit about supplements, and then we'll end tonight's class. Okay, so first is collagen peptides. We're getting a little bit of trouble here with my screen. Sorry about that. Okay, let me just close a few things down here. All right, so amazingly, collagen peptides, taking collagen by mouth, does have a little bit of an effect. And there are certain peptides which are, a couple amino acids long that can stimulate collagen production. I'm not going to go deep into that. I don't think the effects are remarkably dramatic, but they have been shown to have some effect. Keratin, remember we spoke about keratin being that protein that holds cells together, as well as providing the barrier on top of skin that protects us against the outside world. There is a form of solubilized keratin that you can take by mouth. I put a question mark because there just aren't enough studies that show. I need to see more studies there, but the studies that they have seem to be encouraging. The next is a fern extract called Polypodium. Incredible. It's incredible, and I recommend it to all my patients, especially in combination with nicotinamide. Now, Polypodium, again, is an extract from fern, and it works through a whole host of different mechanisms, which really make it an incredible thing to take, especially if you're getting a decent amount of sun exposure. It inhibits the generation of these reactive oxygen species. It enhances your own defense against the oxidative stress. It reduces UVA-induced DNA damage, because all these ultraviolet light that we've spoken about actually causes DNA damage. And so that's something. Neela, I see your question. If you go to my YouTube channel, Neela Ann, and you look at the episode 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was 3 weeks ago, and my YouTube channel is youtube.com/jcarpmd, you'll find an entire lecture on fatty liver, and we'll go through all the details for that. So I recommend that you go over there. Okay, getting back to Polypodium, reduces UVA-induced DNA damage, helps repair sun-damaged skin, and inhibits those MMPs as well. So this Polypodium is an incredible supplement. And again, I recommend it to all my patients that are getting a decent amount of sun exposure, and some that aren't or have had a decent amount of sun. And this includes people who are getting more sun on the weekends as well. The next supplement that I recommend for people getting sun, as well as people who have already developed non-melanoma skin cancers, is nicotinamide, which is actually a form of niacin. It's a form of vitamin B3. And remarkably, it's capable of reducing your risk for non-melanoma skin cancers by about 25%. And for people, especially in a dermatology office, who are coming in regularly with non-melanoma skin cancers like basal cells, being able to reduce this by 25% is incredible. Additionally, for those folks who are weekend warriors, who are out in the sun, a lot of people don't realize, in addition to DNA damage being caused by ultraviolet light B, the sun actually causes immunosuppression. It lowers your immune system. So getting a lot of sun will actually lower your body's ability to fight infections, believe it or not. So nicotinamide, this vitamin B supplement, it's not niacin, it's a form of niacin called nicotinamide, is going to reduce the amount of immunosuppression you get from the sun. It does this because it's what's called an NAD plus precursor. Now, a lot of anti-aging people have been speaking about NAD, and essentially what it's doing is there's something called ATP, which is like the energy currency of your body, and NAD plus it's a precursor of that. But ultimately, what's happening is by supplementing with this, it allows the production of more of this energetic currency thing called ATP. And UV ultraviolet light suppresses this DNA repair by depleting energy. So by taking the nicotinamide, you're sort of boosting the cell's energy. That's partly why it's capable of helping with DNA repair. So again, for people with a history of skin cancer, especially non-melanoma skin cancer, who are still getting sun and are getting these non-melanoma skin cancers, taking fern extract as well as nicotinamide can really be a pretty powerful combination to help with what's going on with the damage that they've already done to their skin. There's some other things that, this fern extract, if I haven't made it clear, it basically allows you to spend a little bit more time in the sun without getting burnt. It's almost like an internal sunscreen, and does act that way as well. Not that it prevents you from having to wear sunblock, but it's doing some things basically under the skin that helps you to repair sun damaged skin, as well as, you know, have a little bit more resilience in the sun. So highly recommend that supplement with the nicotinamide, especially for people with a lot of sun exposure. Red orange extracts, citrus extracts have also been shown to have some of the similar effects. And there's something called phytoceramides, which are plant-based. Ceramides are basically what provide some moisture to the skin. And there are wheat-based phytoceramides that have been shown to boost the natural ceramide production. Vitamin D, of course, we spoke about silicone 2 weeks ago. We spoke about hair. Zinc, essential fatty acids are also going to be very important because if you're not getting the proper amount of essential fatty acids in your diet, you're not going to be able to create the oil barrier of the skin. So we've spoken about keratin providing a layer of protection, but you also need a healthy amount of oil, natural oil on the skin. And essential fatty acids can help with that. A handful of raw nuts or seeds per day. I'm a big fan of people who have a problem with that using something called hemp seed oil, because it has a good ratio of essential fatty acids. And finally, melatonin for people who are having trouble sleeping. Melatonin has an antioxidant and is an antioxidant in addition to preparing your body for sleep, which is, of course, is going to be very important for your overall stress level. Okay, well, we've come up on the hour. I didn't think I would get to the cosmetic treatments, but ultimately, I can briefly make a few comments here. Chemical peels are very popular. I recommend that before you get the deeper chemical peels, you do what's called the beta peel, which is a very superficial peel. If you want to get into peels, which can be very good for your skin, I recommend that you start sort of at the lowest level, which is called the beta peel. It's just something like a salicylic acid peel. And then as you tolerate those, then you can get into some of the deeper ones. Botox, it can be really addictive because it can be so effective. Some of the things to worry about with those, of course, is that you start to go overboard. Some of the things that people are not necessarily cautioned about are, when you start to do the lines around the eyes, you can get muscle wasting here. You can get hollowing out of the skin in this area, and also as you really start chasing lines around the eyes, unfortunately, what can happen is you can get recruitment of other muscles where you get other lines developed. But for the lines here, the frown lines, it can be incredible and works very well. Just a question of knowing its place. Retinoids like Retin-A, Tazorac, tretinoin, adapalene, all these have incredible anti-aging effects. Now we know what they're doing. I mean, you're getting collagen production, in addition to increasing the turnover of the skin, which is something that also slows down as you get older. And lasers are too big of a topic to discuss because they can do so many different things, and they have incredible potential for a whole host of things, including pigmentation, as well as resurfacing of the skin. You can get almost a facelift-like effect with certain types of lasers, and they've become a lot safer as the years have gone by. So, if you are looking for something, you don't want to get, say, a facelift necessarily, but you're looking for something really dramatic. There's something called Active FX, which is what's called a fractional CO2 laser. And this can really be an incredible, almost facelift-like effect, in addition to, which can last many years, in addition to evening out skin tone. And it can be an incredible thing. There's a bit of downtime with it. But again, the topic of lasers is a big one. And then, of course, there's injectable hyaluronic acid fillers that people can use on lines and in lips, and can also be quite good. Unfortunately, sometimes it's overdone. So you want to work and see someone who does that quite a bit. Preferably a dermatologist who is doing this quite a bit. When you get into lips, you should ask to see some of the lips that they've done. There's a definite science to making sure that you have proper ratio of upper to lower lip. There's a whole host of things to consider when you're getting these injectables. But again, that's probably much too broad of a topic to be discussing, and we've certainly come up on the hour. So I am traveling for the next couple of weeks, so won't be doing episode 79 for the next. So the next episode will be in 3 weeks, where we'll be talking about hormesis, talking about what you can do to stress your body in a positive way, how to make your body more resilient through things like specific kinds of exercise, specific kinds of heat, specific supplements that mimic these stresses, so that you can build yourself into a superhuman. How about that? So we'll see you not next week, but in 3 weeks at 8 p.m. Central Time for episode 79 of Wednesday Night Live. And I want to thank you all for your attention, and I wish everyone a good night and wish everyone health. See you next time.